Hey guys, welcome back to Science with Mr. Duo. This lesson today is going to be an introduction on genetics and heredity. It might be a long video, so just sit tight, work through it at your own pace. Okay, so introduction to genetics and heredity. Now the first thing I'm going to show you is this image here. And I'm going to ask you, pick the odd one out. And if you ask me which one is the odd one out, I would say none of them. Now, some of you may say that this gentleman on the far right, he could be the odd one out. Because he's got grey hair. And that is true. That could be true. And some of you may say that this gentleman on the left may be the odd one out because he has dark skin. Okay, and the reason why I would say that none of them are the odd one out because they're all human. And part of being human, there are general characteristics that make us human. Okay, so you can look at someone else and you'll know that they're human straight away. But what makes us different, even though we're all human, is the genes or the genetics that we inherit from our parents that make us unique. Okay, so even though we're all human, these genes and genetics that we inherit make us vastly different. Okay, and so the word inherit in biology means, in biology describes the process by which genetic traits or features are passed on from parents to offspring. Features that you could inherit include hair color. So for example, my hair is black. I could have inherited this from my mum. And from my mum and not my dad because my mum has black hair and my dad has brown hair. My eye color. I've got black eyes and I could have inherited this from my mum. From my mum and not my dad because my mum's got black eyes and my dad's got dark brown eyes. Okay. And these are just some of the traits that are observable, easily seen. And genetic traits that are easily observable are usually physical features. And here I've got two images just from Google Images of two dashing Australians. Here we've got Thor, okay, and we've got Karl Stefanovic on the right. And the physical traits that these guys are expressing is the widow's peak, or in Karl's case, the lack of a widow's peak. Okay, so some easily observable features or traits are usually physical features. Now on the other side we have traits that are not easily observable, and these traits control everything that happens inside of our body. And for example, these non-observable traits could be color blindness. Now, color blindness is an example of a trait that isn't easily observable, and most genetic traits aren't, because they control what happens inside of our body. Now, a person who is colorblind does not see color the way a person with normal vision does. And color blindness is usually found in males, affecting about 7% of the male population. And there's a test called the Ishihara test. And these two circles are a very small sample of that elaborate test. And most people would see, or people with normal vision anyway, will see that on the circle on the left, there's a number inscribed in the middle, 29 in different colors. And the circle on the right, the number in the middle is 74. Okay, so we'll see that because we can distinguish between different colors. Now, people who are colorblind will just see that they're all one color, or they won't see the differences between the circle and the numbers in the middle. And now, if you don't see the numbers in the middle, okay, don't panic. Like I said, this is a very small sample of an elaborate test, but if you are worried, go get that checked out, or go to see an optometrist or a GP or something. Okay, so color blindness is a good example of traits that are not observable. So what we've spoken about so far. Well, we've said that genetic traits make us unique. Even though we're all human, the traits that we inherit from our family make us vastly different. Genetic traits will determine our physical features and how our bodies function. Some traits are visible while others aren't, okay? And the visible traits are usually physical features, whereas the invisible traits are the ones that control how our bodies work on the inside. Genetic traits are inherited, meaning that they are passed on from parent to offspring. And offspring here just means child or a child produced by the parents. And moving on, there are some key words that we need to talk about. And the first of which is DNA. Now, we've all heard of DNA through the media and growing up and through movies and all that stuff, but what is it really? Well, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. And this image on the right is what DNA looks like. It looks like a really long ladder that's been twisted, okay? And there are heaps of steps in between the two barriers. And here in this picture, you'll see that these steps have different colors. Well, that actually means something. They code for proteins and code for a blueprint to make proteins. And each DNA molecule is a really long strand, a really long double helix strand. And the double helix is just that name we give to the twisted ladder. And it resembles a spiral staircase with millions of steps. Now, it's probably worth saying that there are a lot of features of DNA that I'm not going through in this video, but for now, you just got to know that DNA is a long strand, looks like a ladder that's been twisted, and it contains codes. And these codes have the following names, these bases, okay? And a combination of these bases will code for different things. So that is DNA. What is a gene? Okay, well, you can unzip these genes. Okay, while you can unzip these genes, they aren't the same pair of genes that you wear around your waist. So it's a unit of heredity. And it's made of portions of a DNA strand. Okay? And this section could contain up to millions of DNA bases or steps. And there are certain structures of DNA that we're not going through, just for simplicity's sake. But you just got to know that these bases will code for different things. Or a combination of the bases will code for different things. Okay, and if there is an error in the code, if the sequence of bases is incorrect, that's where we start to get mutations and diseases. Now, what is a gene? Well, a gene is a unit of inheritance. What does that mean, though? Well, part of your physical appearance and bodily functions are expressions of these genes or a combination of these genes working together. And where do you get these genes from? You inherit it from your parents. So a gene is made up of a portion of a longer DNA strand. If you have a look at this image here, in the top right, here we've got a long DNA strand, okay, and just this one section here is one gene. And genes code for a characteristic or a trait. More specifically, they code for a protein, which is then expressed through a characteristic or a trait. So one small section of DNA, or it could be huge, so depending on the type of gene or what it's coding for, they'll have different sizes. And so that's genes. And simple, in some plants, the color of petals that are expressed through the plants are an expression of just one gene that they inherit from their parents. Okay, for example, in these plants here, you can see that there's a purple flower and there's a white flower. Now, these plants would have probably inherited one gene from their parent, and it's being expressed through their physical appearance as either purple or white. Now, most traits, though, most characteristics, and especially in humans, are quite complicated. For example, the color of your eyes, your eye color, it's not just one gene expressing that physical appearance, but rather it's a whole combination of genes interacting with each other to give that expression. And height is another thing. It's very complicated. It's not determined by one gene, but many genes working together. But not only that, it's also dependent on the external factors such as the environment. Now, I don't know why I've got two environments there. Just ignore that. It should be just one. Okay. And now, DNA is usually found wound up and packed in these shapes. And these shapes here, you will see they're numbered. Okay. And if you've guessed that these shapes represent, or this picture represents chromosomes, then you'd be correct. Okay. So chromosomes are found in the nucleus of the cell. They are located in the nucleus of animal and plant cells, and they're made up of a protein, okay, and a single molecule or a very long strand of DNA. And this very long strand of DNA that's been twisted into a double helix shape and compressed and compacted into these chromosomes contain millions and millions of not only DNA bases but genes. Okay, so here in the image you can see that the double helix is a strand leading up to the shape, leading up to the chromosome. Okay, so it's been molded, it's been compacted and compressed to give you the chromosome. And within the chromosome, there are different sections that have different genes. Now, the word chromosome comes from two Greek words. The first one is chroma, which stands for color, and the second one, soma, meaning body. Now, if we go back to the image before, you'll see that there are 23 chromosomes. Now, you might not see because I'm here. Let me just move. Okay, so there are 23 chromosomes. 23 pairs of chromosomes, sorry. So pairs mean two. We have two of each. In each pair, we have two chromosomes because one we inherit from our mom and one we inherit from our dad. And each cell will have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Okay, so normal cells will have 23 pairs of chromosomes, but sex cells will only have half of that. Okay, so quickly recapping, the three keywords that we've spoken so far. DNA is a cell's genetic material. It contains the codes for protein synthesis, and these proteins will then be expressed through physical appearances if it codes for a physical characteristic. And DNA is usually found twisted up in a double helix shape. Genes are a unit of heredity. Okay, they're made up of a section. So a DNA strand, a section of that is a gene, and depending on what it codes for, it could be different. The gene could be of different size and have a different amount of DNA bases. And they code for a protein or a trait or a characteristic. Now, chromosomes are found in the nucleus. We have 46 in each cell. We have 23 pairs. So 23 come from our mom, 23 come from our dad, and they're made up of a very long strand of DNA. Okay, some simple traits only require one gene to code for that trait, but there are many more that are much more complicated that require a combination of genes. Just to make things a little bit harder for you guys, there's just one more word that we want to go for to have all of this prior knowledge in order to understand heredity and genetics. And this word here is alleles. Okay. And now alleles are different forms of the same gene. Remember how I said you have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and you get 23 from your dad, 23 from your mum. So here this is one pair of chromosomes. And so let's say the left one you inherited from your mum and the right one you inherit from your dad. Now, alleles are different forms of the same gene. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can think of it like ice cream. You can think of genes like ice cream. If you look here, I've put an image of an ice cream tub. Okay, if I showed you this, you'd be able to tell me that it's ice cream. Not only would you be able to tell me that it's ice cream, you'll be able to tell me the different types of ice cream. Okay, chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. Okay, there are different types of ice cream, but at the end of the day, it's still ice cream. It's the same as genes. So in this section of the chromosome that's been colored here, you'll see that it's red and blue. And it's probably not true. Let's just say that they code for hair color. Why are there two different colors? Well, these two different colored sections are different alleles of the gene. So they're different variations of the gene that code for hair color. And so this red section here could code for black hair color, and this blue section here could code for blonde hair color. And whichever allele is expressed, or whichever allele is dominant, is the physical expression that you're going to have. Okay, so again, alleles are different forms of the same gene.